Hi, hello to everyone. My name is David Noguera, and I'm the president of Doctor Without Borders, Médicos Sin Fronteras, Médecins Sans Frontières in Spain, and it's a real privilege to be here. First of all, I want to thank Campus Party not only for this opportunity, because you also know the whole event, its profits are going to benefit the work that MSF, that Doctors Without Borders, does across the world. And so we are extremely, extremely thankful. And to all of you also for your time. I'm gonna try to give a presentation that you will see. It's gonna turn more into a request. So for some 20 minutes, and then hopefully we'll get some questions from you guys. So bear with me, and I hope it's going to be an interesting session. Also, a message. We're going through a very difficult situation due to the COVID pandemic, as you all are very much aware. So I hope all of you and your people are well and safe. And let's hope that all together we shall be able to overcome this situation in a short time. My talk is about Doctors Without Borders. So yeah, I work in an organization called Doctors Without Borders. I guess you are quite familiar with this organization. It's quite well known. But basically, as a medical and humanitarian organization, we work in emergencies, basically in acute situations linked to conflict, natural disasters, outbreaks, or nutritional crisis. In the places where people are in the most vulnerable situation. And we are, as I said, an emergency organization. We engage when the situation is worse or most critical, and then whenever it's kind of back to normal, we retrieve resources to deploy them elsewhere. And talking about Without Borders, I think we have to reflect also on the concept of globalization. Some people, insist, and they come with a definition of globalization that is basically an economical one. So they understand and they tell us, and some people even believe that globalization is about sitting in front of your computer and from your home, you're able to buy anything around the world, food, goods, whatever, clothes, and then in exchange for your money. And this is globalization, and it's mainly economical, and it's an amazing thing. Well, fair enough. However, there's some elements, that somehow create what I call some kind of interference in this kind of matrix of an economical globalization only. You have the situation of people who are refugee or displaced. This is not new at all. And during the World War II, back in the 40s, around 60 million people were refugees and displaced around the world. Well, this year, only in 2020, we're already above 80 million people who are displaced or refugees, and the COVID are only going to increase those figures. And, some governments, some political leaders believe or pretend that, to solve this is just a matter of building walls, securitizing your borders, spending an insane amounts of money, reinforcing your police, your army. Is the same as you guys who are millennials, who are tech guys, who are gamers. When you spend too much time playing your computer at home, if you put a lock in your room, if people are complaining, or your family, your relatives, whatever, your partner is complaining about how much time you spend in computers or video games, whatever, then you put a lock in your door and that will solve the problem. Well, we all know it doesn't go that way. Then we have the issue of climate change. And then you see all these politicians that, go with this nationalistic agenda, how they struggle to explain how you can, put borders to weather. And this is a massive challenge. Some 30, 40 years ago, there were some pioneers, people, Greenpeace, these kind of organizations who were already alerting us about this. Now the situation has evolved, and we all know that we all have an individual and collective role to play against this systemic threat. Now, even if you have your waste and you dump it in the wrong container, so you put all your papers in the in the wrong container, you will feel guilty about that. So they created environmental awareness. So we all understand that when it comes to global situations, we all have an individual and collective responsibility. It does not only apply, as I said, to NGOs, organizations like Greenpeace. And we as citizens, we have to put pressure on governments to find solutions for our own territory, but also for the global situation. And on this, we have a virus. We have a virus that is today impacting more than 200 countries, as you know, with millions of people affected. It's going to impact the whole globe, and we're going to see levels of mortality and suffering with no precedents. So all these issues clearly challenge this idea, on one hand, that the globalization is only economic, is only asymmetric, and is only on your own benefit. But the reality, as I said, is that global problems require global solutions. We are all responsible for the causes and therefore the consequences of those issues. So we all have an individual and collective responsibility. And you may question yourself, saying, I mean, do I have the power to do something? So there was this famous Portuguese and Spanish writer, Saramago, who got a Nobel Prize. And he had a beautiful sentence that basically he said, there's two superpowers in the world. One is the US, and people allegedly would say China today, and the second one is yourself. So we have to understand that, yes, we have power as individuals and as a collective, and we have a responsibility to exercise that. I started mentioning, talking about no borders and talking about Doctors Without Borders. Let me explain you a little bit this organization, and I'll try to do that, given the nature of this event, which is for tech people and gamers. And I don't want to downplay the situations that in MSF we go through, but as a kind of video game, because, when you join MSF and you leave to one of our interventions, we call that a mission. So you go through your first mission, and then a second mission, and then a third mission. So it's kind of, if you wish, similar to a video game, where you keep going through different missions, until you get to the end of the game. So let me share a little bit of my story in MSF. I joined MSF back in 2001, and my first mission, I had some kind of objectives, and I had some challenges that I have to overcome, And basically, it was flying to the Canary Islands, so some islands in Spain, where some refugee population, some migrants were coming from west of Africa, and jumping into the sea with a boat and sailing for 3, 4, 5 days and arriving to the Canary Islands in very hard conditions. And there, the Spanish police, kept them those days in an airport in very hard conditions. I mean, it was a former airport; it was not operational anymore, and the conditions where these people were kept were absolutely not acceptable. So we went there, and the objective, it was more, a speaking out intervention. It was more about denouncing this. So we spent 3 days there, giving visibility to the situation. So the media was there with us, and we put political pressure, and the problem was somehow solved. At least the problem for these particular people, the airport was closed. So that was quite a success. So then the first mission was accomplished. So I was ready for a second one. So, in your MSF career, like in a video game, if you wish, you start in the lower ranks, as a kind of field member, and then you start getting more responsibility, more skills, more tools. So my second mission, this was 2002, I went to Somalia, to Mogadishu. Somalia is this amazing and beautiful country full of wonderful people. But, since 1991, they have no government. So there was a cholera outbreak, and we were the only organization dealing with this situation in the capital, in Mogadishu, with 1 million people. And we had to engage with the different warlords, controlling the different areas of Mogadishu to allow us, so we could be safe and operate in such a complex environment. So I was there for some 3 or 4 months, and, finally the outbreak was over. But then, I had a second stage for my Somalia mission. So I stayed around, also contributing to settle hospitals and health centers in Mogadishu and in 2 cities to the north of Mogadishu, Johar and Aden Jebel. So that took me 11 months. My third one was in Congo. Congo is an amazing country, beautiful, but there's been a conflict ongoing for decades now. And I was sent to a south province of Congo called Katanga, and there I was already a project coordinator. So I have more responsibility, I have more tools, I have more capacity, I have more budget. And this was a nutritional crisis in a place where this conflict is happening also due to all the minerals, wood, materials, all the goods they have in Congo. Some of these minerals used to build the computers or the tablets we are using to communicate between ourselves. So this was a nutritional crisis due to this conflict, and we started there. And at the end of the day, we settled a full-blown hospital with all services, and I spent some 6 months. So then the next mission was Darfur. Then I went back to Congo. Then I went to Ivory Coast, Angola, Tunisia, Yemen, etc., etc., etc. So I've been now. Next year is going to be my 20 years in MSF. And now I'm currently the president of MSF in Spain. And this next year is going to be my last one, because I think that 20 years, it's time enough. So it's time for young, new people, millennials like you to take over, in order to ensure a healthy renovation, in this organization. So somehow now, 20 years in this game, I'm faced with the most difficult mission of my entire career. And this is the fight against this outbreak. And I can assure you that even that now I'm experienced and I have a solid background, I need help. We need help. So this conversation is going to shift from a presentation to a specific request. And this is that we all need to get involved in this unprecedented challenge of this outbreak that is already, but is going to just create unprecedented levels of mortality and suffering. So if this was a video game and this was a mission, the objective would be to try to save as much more lives as possible, try to reduce suffering, particularly to the most vulnerable people, and also try to preserve the dignity of these people, And this objective of this mission, I think I have to explain a concept, which is what we call the excess of mortality. So every day in any place around the world, people die. And they die because medical causes, but also structural issues, education, economy of a particular context, etc., etc. Now, when you have an excess of mortality, that is what we consider an emergency. And we are seeing in all the countries impacted by the COVID an excess of mortality because of the virus. This excess of mortality is going to be followed by another excess of mortality because the systems of health, the health systems, particularly of the most vulnerable countries, are going to collapse. So the rest of diseases, call it malaria, nutrition, whatever, malnutrition, are also going to generate a higher level of mortality. Of course, the health system workers are going to be impacted by this. And it's a duty of all governments and all of us to do our best to protect these people who are the frontline workers. And, to whom I'm extremely thankful for the extraordinary commitment they're showing in the face of this unprecedented event. Following this excess of mortality, the outbreak is also going to create a financial crisis. So we're going to see the vulnerable people, being deprived of the necessary means to access health, access proper food, etc., etc., etc. So basically, this is the challenge. We have to reduce this excess of mortality. So we have to reduce, in one hand, the number of cases, and how we have to do already that. We have to ensure protective measures. We have to use masks. We have to use social distancing. We have to use hygiene, personal hygiene and surfaces and everything. We have to very rapidly identify active cases and being able to, isolate these cases and their context and provide them with the necessary social network so that we can ensure that they are okay. We have to be able to educate and communicate about this outbreak, so people are aware what they can do and how to prevent getting infected. And also we have to reduce the mortality. So we have to very rapidly increase the hospital capacity in the places where this outbreak is already impacting or where it will affect in a later stage. We have to provide oxygen because, a lot of patients require oxygen as a part of the medical treatment. We have to build and expand our intensive care units. only, I'm speaking from Barcelona. In Barcelona, we have 3,000 beds only in the city of Barcelona and the surroundings, 3,000 beds of intensive care unit. In entire Africa, in the entire continent, 5,000. So that's going to be a massive challenge in this issue. And we're going to have a lot of obstacles. Let me be clear. We're going to have mediocre leadership, populists who are going to deny the impact of this situation. People who are going to say, well, they're going to retrieve to a nationalist agenda, and somehow they're going to discharge the responsibility they have in other places. We're going to have economic interests. We have to do everything in our hands to ensure that the vaccine is going to be made available to everyone that needs it, and in particular, the most vulnerable population. Also, same for the treatment. We cannot allow patents, or financial gain to come, as an obstacle to reach that everybody is able to reach the necessary treatment. We'll have to defend rights, basic rights, human rights, for instance, the access to health. And we also going to confront fake news, misinformation, people sharing rumors about complots, about, and then, of course, we'll have to tackle the virus, the direct impact of the virus, as I said, reducing the cases and reducing the workload of number of mortality also. How to do that? How to play this game? I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, because I think I'm speaking to the most prepared generation ever. You are absolutely equipped with technology, with knowledge, and with the ambition to change this. I'm gonna share an example. The example I know of how we do things. Doctors Without Borders is an NGO, but I don't like to define ourselves as what we are not. So we're not government. What we are is civil society organized, And I like to think of MSF, of Doctors Without Borders, as a chain of humanity. Today we have 6.5 million people who support the organization, around 50,000 workers, and we reach 10 million consultations every year and more than 2 million hospitalizations in the most challenging contexts around the world. Let me put you an example of how this chain works. We have a project in Yemen. Yemen is an amazing, beautiful country full of extraordinary people. So we have an hospital to the north of Yemen, Abs. And this hospital was bombed by the coalition who's engaged in the conflict in Yemen. And they killed 20 people, including one of our colleagues, Hakimi. We were ready to close that project. It's an hospital that serves a population around 1 million people, and there's no other functioning medical structure around. But our Yemeni colleagues and the Yemeni population we work with, they insisted we should stay and reopen. And this happened in 2016, and today the hospital is still fully functional. We have been able to increase its capacity. And if we are a civil society, we can do this, It's a very political thing, if you wish, because it shows that if governments and international organizations who have much bigger capacity than us, if they don't do things like this, it's not because they don't have the capacity, it's because they have no political willingness to do so. And I think this we have to absolutely challenge. I try to explain this as a video game, and because Campus Party traditionally has been, attended by a lot of gamers, but unfortunately, this is not a video game. This is the real world. And my call for support is absolutely real. As I said, 20 years in this sector, in the humanitarian sector, and I've never, ever faced a challenge like this. So I'm calling upon you to organize yourself, to become a collective antivirus. You, the millennial generation, the gamers, you are somehow portrayed or accused of being an individualistic, selfish generation, that you're obsessed about likes, follows, shares. So I invite you to join the struggle to save lives and alleviate suffering of people. I don't know how much likes that brings, but I'm convinced that this is absolutely the right thing to do. I call you to learn from each other. We've seen amazing things happening during this epidemic also. The sad thing is that, we need a kind of emergency to come and work together. I mean, if we use this same attitude in normal times, I mean, we would be unstoppable. But I've seen communities of makers coming together all across the world and designing respirators, ventilators, I've seen people across the world coming together and sharing information, Scientists from any country in the world, sharing papers, sharing all the information in order to push everything we need for the vaccine or for the treatment. I've seen, examples of solidarity like this, like the Campus Party. All this, participation or joint venture between Campus Party and MSF happened through LinkedIn. One day I opened my LinkedIn and I had a private message from the founder of this initiative, Paco. And he said, well, send me an email. And here we are, in this amazing event, coming together to try to build this global antivirus. And above all, I think that you have to own this moment. This is a changing episode in our lives. We will always remember 2020 as the year of COVID. And it's your generation, it's your responsibility to be able to tackle the issues that my generation, we haven't been able to do so. I went to Central African Republic a couple of years ago. And I was already the president of MSF Spain. So now when I go to the field, I have a much more institutional role than an operational. So I meet people, basically. I meet political leaders. I meet, rebel factions. So I spent a week in Central African Republic talking to people, discussing with all these people in order to ensure that MSF could continue to provide the badly needed health services we are bringing to that country. And after a week, my last day, I was going back to that base. We have a project to the north of Central African Republic in Batanga. So this was late, almost 6 p.m. in the evening. So we had to make it to the base before sunset for security reasons. And, we were driving back to the base, and suddenly this guy shows up from the middle of the woods, like waving to the cars, stop, stop. And it happened to be one of our community health workers. So we stopped, and he called our attention towards a mama and a kid, and this mama who was holding a 2 or 3-year-old boy who was kind of semi-unconscious, so with a fever, so you could easily see it was a severe malaria, So we just put the kid on the car and the mama too. We drove the 15, 20 minutes we had left to the hospital. And once we got there, the kid was safe, he got treatment. And the next day he was fine. So I have no idea of the name of the kid, no idea. I have no idea, the name of the village where this happened. The only thing I know is that the kid is fine, because this is what we have to do, and this is what we believe. We believe everyone, regardless of any circumstances, has the right to access quality medical care. There's a sentence in the Talmud, the sacred book of the Jews, which is also mentioned in this famous movie, The Schindler's List, that says that, if you save a life, you save the whole world. And, and this whole event of Campus Party is under the label of rebooting the world, or reboot the world. So I suggest we come together and we reboot the world by rebooting one life at a time, because maybe, rebooting one life is a very practical way of rebooting the entire world. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I want to thank all of you for attending, and also to the organizers. I don't know if we have too much time left because I speak too much. I think there's a question. How long do you think economy will be activated? Oof. I have no idea. I mean, I have much more questions than answers. I wouldn't take the risk of, like some kind of prophets that you see around that come, with a kind of clear roadmap of what's going to happen. What I know is that we have to insist, we have to fight hard, guys. We have to push. There's no alternative because everything is at stake. So I think we just have to keep pushing, as convinced as I am that, in some months we'll be in a much better position. But we have to come out from this in a collective way. That's the only fair way of coming out and the only real will, because I think we all understand by now that if we only take care of the issue in one side of the world, it will come back and hit us again. I don't know if there's any questions. I believe not. So if that's the case, we have no more time left. I've been said we have no more time left. So thank you again. It's been a great privilege. And as I said, let's come together and let's go for it. Take care. Keep it up.